Hello. Been a while, from my perspective at least, since the last time I recorded one of these. I've been having some trouble striking the right balance between getting time to read Way of Kings in between all the stuff I have to do for school. So I've been making a bit slower progress. So it's been a couple of weeks actually, but I have read the third part of the book, and I'm still really enjoying it. And I am absolutely 100% focused on Shallan's story right now. Um, Previously, I was most invested in Kaladin, and I still think Kaladin's story is going to be the most interesting, maybe by the end of this book, because I'm really interested in where it's going. But Shallan's story is the one that I'm like excited about in every chapter that it comes in, that we get back to her. Like every time I see that the next chapter is a Kaladin chapter, every time I see that waving flag at the beginning of the chapter, I'm like, oh, I was hoping for more Shallan. And I feel bad for Kaladin because again, I do actually really enjoy his story as well, but I'm just really invested in Shallan right now. Maybe because I relate to Shallan a lot. Like I feel like Shallan and I are somewhat similar people in many ways. I see a lot of myself in her sometimes. Whereas I don't really see a lot of myself in Kaladin. Um, but that being said, I am going to start with Kaladin just like I did last time. I'm going to cover the stuff that happened with him first. So this was a big section for Kaladin. Like lots of really major stuff happened here. Um, first of all, of course, we have the chapter where Kaladin is strung up to face the High Storm, which we have actual explicit confirmation that Kaladin is drawing power out of the Kaladin is drawing Stormlight into himself, much like Seth. Now, I don't see any evidence that Kaladin is using the same abilities as Seth. From what I can tell, Kaladin gets something different from Stormlight. He gets like physically enhanced and maybe lucky, as opposed to Seth, who has like these really specific gravity-based powers. Um, Maybe that'll turn out to be wrong. Maybe it'll turn out that these are both the same kind of power that Kaladin and Seth have, but so far I haven't really seen much overlap between what Seth does when he consumes Stormlight and what Kaladin does. But maybe as Kaladin becomes more aware of his powers and starts using them consciously, there will be more overlap. We'll see. So that being said, the chapter where Kaladin faces the storm is fantastic. I love how it's written, and I also love the sort of visions he has afterwards in sort of his dream. Um, the, um, the internal turmoil he has after he wakes up and realizes that their position is hopeless. The chapter where he decides that they're essentially going to rebel and desert is also great. It's just really good, writing all around in Kaladin's chapters. I would say that the writing is actually stronger in Kaladin's chapters here than in Shallan's, even though I like Shallan's story more right now. Kaladin's flashbacks, I'm not sure I'm the biggest fan, just because I feel like there is I'm not sure I was the biggest fan of everything up until Kaladin and his brother got sent to the military, but after that I was. So I'm not a fan of like everything to do with Kaladin's family, all of those flashbacks, just because they're just kind of boring. Like we know how. I didn't know exactly how they were going to end, but I knew the gist of it. Like, there wasn't much mystery. It became clear really early on that the Lord was going to somehow screw them over, and that was going to lead to Kaladin's brother's death, and Kaladin was going to blame himself. And so while the details of it were interesting, I didn't actually expect that Kaladin's brother would be the one to get sent to the military. I was surprised by that. But overall, those chapters feel kind of like a bit of filler to me, but I don't think they are, because they do inform Kaladin's character in the present. Like, a lot of what Kaladin feels and does right now is better understood thanks to us seeing him learn from his father and from everyone back in his hometown and the experiences there. So it's not wasted, it's not filler, it serves an important purpose and it needs to be there, but actually reading it can be a bit unexciting compared to the current day timeline for Kaladin. What else have we got going on here? Yeah, the final Kaladin flashback, the one that this section, the last one in this section, the one which reveals how Kaladin actually became a slave. It reveals what happened between chapter 1 and chapter 2 of this book, because that was actually the biggest mystery. Like, what happened to his brother? Sure, that was intriguing. But we also did kind of know, like, we knew that he was dead. So that story had a pre-written conclusion. But this was a big mystery, because the book opens with a chapter where Kaladin is a squad leader and doing great and is in high standing and everything, and then it just cuts to him being a slave 8 months later, and what happened in between there is really interesting. And also explains Kaladin's hatred for the Light Eyes even more, because this is actually a really nice touch. I really like that Kaladin had this sort of idealized view of Amaram, where he essentially viewed Amaram as one of the good ones. Like, he had seen exclusively bad behavior from Light Eyes in his life, but he was so indoctrinated into the ideology of Light Eye superiority that he had been raised with, that he couldn't actually comprehend, he couldn't make himself think that maybe just Light Eyes don't deserve their positions, that they're flawed and terrible people. So instead, he basically concocted this dichotomy in his head, where he was like, oh, there's the real Light Eyes, who are the honorable ones, and they're the higher ranked ones. But then these lesser Light Eyes, they're the petty, awful ones. And Amaram disproved that, because Amaram to him was everything that a Light Eyes was supposed to be, and then Amaram murdered all of his friends and condemned him to slavery for selfish, greedy reasons. Which are just, frankly, just inexcusable reasons. There is no argument to be made that what Amaram did here is justifiable. So I really like that. I like that, I like that Kaladin's, it wasn't a singular event that made Kaladin hate the Light Eyes. It was a series of slow blows to his belief in Light Eye superiority. He used to firmly believe that Light Eyes were good, and then over time that slowly got chipped away at as one after another disappointed him. First the Lord, whose name I forget, the one who actually sent his brother to the military. I can't remember his name right now. Then Laral's boyfriend, the Lord's husband, and now finally Amaram. I am curious to see if Kaladin is going to have to reconsider that opinion as he presumably gets to meet Adolin and Dalinar. I mean, he's technically encountered Adolin here, and already, that encounter kind of challenged his preconceptions about the Light Eyes. Um, but I'm wondering if Kaladin will successfully escape and his story will diverge from the Colin families, or if he will actually end up interacting a lot more with the Colins. Um, my current gut instinct is that he probably won't, just because I feel like this book is building up towards the escape. Like, I feel like they've got to successfully escape at this point. I can't see this going any other way, and Kaladin, like, staying alive and relevant to the story. So my current prediction is that they will succeed in their escape, probably either at the end of part 4 or even in part 5. And that, like, after this, Kaladin and whoever survives from Bridge 4 will no longer be at the Shattered Plains and will no longer interact with that cast of characters. But I could be wrong. So that's about all I have to say for Kaladin's story, apart from some minor things which I'll talk about later, which relate more to the overarching plot. The other side of this is, of course, Shallan. Shallan, holy crap, this section had so much happen in Shallan's story. Like, this was, like, the most intense Shallan section. During this one short section, she got chased by invisible fractal demons, kind of fell in love with Capsel, I guess, had several incredibly interesting conversations with Jasna, especially the one about Jasna's atheism, which I'll get to in a moment. She discovered that she figured out how to soulcast, and then immediately ended up in the hospital for slicing her own wrists to hide the fact that she soulcast. And then she immediately got poisoned by Kabsal, watched him die, had to give the soulcaster back to Jasna in order to save her life, had her own blood soulcast within her, which sounds incredibly uncomfortable and painful, and then got banished by Jasna. So I don't have a good sense of where her story is going, but my guess would be, just like my guess for Kaladin, is that he is going to leave the Shattered Plains and go in a completely new direction with his story. My guess for Shallan is that she won't leave Kharbranth. My guess for Shallan is that in this next section she will somehow convince Jasna to keep her on. At least that's sort of the feeling I have. Mostly because if she doesn't, she's doomed. Like her family is screwed. She's lost the soulcaster, so she's failed completely. There's nothing she can do anymore. We'll see if I'm right about that, but that's my prediction. But let's talk about some of the important stuff that happens during Shallan's chapters here. Not so much what's going to come after, because I'm not good at predictions with this book, I think. It's very hard to predict, actually. Yeah, so in Shallan's chapter, several things really stuck out to me. One, all of the debates about theology and atheism that Shallan has with Jasna and that Jasna has with the king are really interesting and well written, and I have to give props to Sanderson, because I know that Sanderson himself is religious, but he did not give in to the temptation to strawman his opposition. Jasna's position here is incredibly well argued. Even though Sanderson himself would probably personally agree with Shallan and the king, there is no question that, as it is written here, Jasna's arguments are better. Like Jasna presents her case better and stronger, and there aren't really any holes to poke in Jasna's case the way there are in Shallan's and the King's. So, like I said, I'm just really impressed that I'm always impressed when a writer is able to do that, when they are able to take a position that they don't necessarily agree with, and so fully invest themselves in why someone would believe that they are able to argue effectively in favor of that position. So, props to Sanderson for that. Speaking of that argument, I just have to say, Kabsal's proof, like the cities, is complete nonsense. Like the fact that you can make sand take the shape of those cities is utterly meaningless. Like completely meaningless. Because those cities were made by people. There is absolutely no reason to assume that they weren't made that way by someone who was privy to the shapes that thing would make and was just imitating them when building the cities. Like, it's just not a very good argument. What else? The other major thing I want to talk about with Shallan is the way that soul casting is implied to work. Basically, from what I can tell of what happened there in that chapter near the end, Shallan spoke to the spirit, or spren as the case may be, of an inanimate object, and literally just like convinced it, like talked it into changing its form. That's really interesting. If that is how soulcasting works, and if soulcasting is essentially about communicating with the sentient essence of things in order to change their physical nature, that's really interesting, and I'm really curious to see how that's going to play out in the future as we maybe get more into the points of view of characters who actually soulcast. I just remembered that there's actually another thing I needed to talk about with Kaladin. I completely forgot that was in this section. Actually, for some reason in my head, Kaladin's whole shield plan failing was the end of the previous section, but no, that was actually in this section. I'm looking at my notes here. Yeah, Kaladin's plan failing the way it did and ruining the chances of ruining the entire fight in that like domino effect way was really cool. Like that was a really bold choice. The fact that Sanderson built up his hero making this complex plan that was going to be like this big triumphant moment, and then having it fail so spectacularly and backfire so badly was a bold choice, and I also respect that. Now, there's a few things I have to say that don't necessarily relate to the micro level of Kaladin's or Shallan's plot here, but are more about the larger narrative here. So, first of all, we have a name. The name is Odium. The thing that spoke in the vision said to Kaladin, "Child of Tanavast, child of honor, child of one long since departed, the oath pact was shattered. Odium comes, most dangerous of all the 16. So I'm guessing. So first of all, odium is a word. It's not a word we use, but it is a word in the English language, and it means something like hate, I think. I think it means something like hate, essentially. It's like a fancy way to say hate, I think. And the fact that some kind of entity is being described with this as its name makes me think of ruin and preservation in Mistborn. So I'm guessing that the 16 being referenced here is a concept that is relevant to the entire Cosmere. I'm guessing that there are 16 deities of sorts, I guess, who are split among various worlds. With obviously ruin and preservation being on the what was the name of the word of Mistborn? Scadrial? Something like that. And at least one god being confirmed here named Odium. 16 is also obviously very relevant in Mistborn. There's a whole plot twist about the number 16, which seems to imply that 16 has some sort of metaphysical relevance to the nature of the universe. So I'm going to take it, for right now, I'm going to take it as a safe bet that odium, whatever that is the same kind of thing as ruin and preservation in Mist. I'm also going to make the assumption, based on the name alone, that odium is somehow related to the thrill. I've talked about in the last video about how I feel like the thrill isn't just a regular adrenaline rush. Like, the way it's being described feels like it might be something supernatural. And my guess is that it's probably being caused by odium, that it's essentially odium's equivalent of, like, ruin's influence on people. So I'm looking forward to that. What else is there? Right, the things that Shallan keeps seeing, the head things, the things that are actually, like, the first thing you see when you open the book is a drawing of those things, actually. Although at the time I didn't know what they were. I mean, I still don't know what they are, but yeah, I can't even begin to guess, actually. Like, I don't think I have enough information right now to make a guess for that. I don't think they're the Voidbringers, because in the prologue we actually saw one of the heralds? Was that what they were called? The heralds, yes. One of the heralds fighting a Voidbringer, and the Voidbringer was quite clearly described as just like a big chasm fiend. So I'm guessing that whatever these things are, they're not the Voidbringers. But I could be wrong about that. Well, maybe this is like the spiritual form of the Voidbringers, and they were just like possessing a chasm fiend back then in the desolation. Who knows? So I do find it interesting that it's specifically Shallan who is encountering them, and it obviously the only reason Shallan is aware of them is because of her photographic memory, which makes me wonder if they're actually everywhere. Like, are they currently all around Kaladin, and he's just like not aware of them because no one is except Shallan? Or are they actually focusing on Shallan and like chasing her? I don't know yet. We'll see. Finally, I want to talk about the three intermissions at the end here. I don't really have much to say about Seth's intermission, except R.I.P. to the King of Jock-Eved. That's gonna cause some problems. But as for the other two, the first one is also not very interesting, the one about Baxil. I do. It mostly just is world building and showing that there's like all sorts of different cultures with different magic going on. Like the night asking a boon of the Night Watcher in exchange for a curse. It's an interesting concept, but so far I have no indication that it's going to be central to the plot. We'll see. But the one in the middle is the one that's really interesting. The one with the two Ardents on an island, doing research together. So two things happen here. One of them says, here's a direct quote: "I wonder if they eat in the cognitive realm. Is a food there what it sees itself as being? I'll have to read and see if anyone has ever eaten while visiting Shadesmar, or Shadesmar." What? What is the cognitive realm? Is Shadesmar, the name of the cognitive realm? People can visit it and come back from it? What are you talking about? Is it the place where Shallan went when she was soul casting? I have no idea, but that sentence feels incredibly important, and it's dropped casually into a random side conversation about food. The other thing that feels incredibly important in this chapter is the fact that Spren apparently are quantum entities. Like they have quantum qualities. Like they have qualities which are undetermined until you record them, and the act of recording them fixes their quality. That's really interesting because of Syl. I now think I know what's going on with Syl. I think Syl is becoming more of an individual, more of a singular being with a persistent form and personality, because she is being persistently perceived by Kaladin. Like Kaladin, through his observation of Syl, is fixing her as a singular entity. And that's why she's different from all other Spren. I don't know if that's all that's going on, but I'm pretty sure that's at least a part of what's going on with Syl. Okay. That is everything that happened here, really. Oh, one last thing. One last prediction. I am 99% sure Shallan killed her father. Probably either in self-defense or in defense of one of her brothers. Like, either he got violent with her or with one of her brothers and she killed him, or he killed the one brother who's dead, then, like, the one brother whose death is unexplained, and then she killed him in response. But like, there's like a 99% chance in my head that we're going to find out, presumably in a later book, when we get her flashbacks, that Shallan killed her dad. This video has gone on quite long at this point. This was a long section, so I'm going to end it there. I am very excited for where both of these stories are going. And I also saw that the next section has, I think, Navani POVs, like in the list of characters on the first page, which will be interesting. We haven't really seen anything of Navani so far. She's just been like a minor side character for Dalinar, but an intriguing one. See you next time.